If you've ever set up a small server room or a home office where you can't afford a blackout to wipe out a day's worth of work, you know the tension that comes with choosing a UPS. You want something that will actually stay online when the power falters, that won't take up an entire rack just to protect a handful of devices, and that feels like a solid investment rather than a gadget you'll replace after a year. The risk of buying a unit that looks impressive on paper but turns out to be a headache when you finally need it is real, and that's why I spent a good amount of time digging into the Eaton 9PX3000GRT 3000VA before hitting record. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the environment where this UPS makes sense. The 9PX series is a double conversion, online model, which means it creates a clean sine wave regardless of the quality of your incoming power. That's a big deal if you're feeding network switches, storage arrays, or a wall-mounted media server that needs uninterrupted power. In my own test rig I set up a dual CPU workstation, a couple of NAS drives, and a VoIP PBX all tied to a single 9PX3000GRT. The unit held the line for about 8 minutes on a full battery. 8 minutes might sound short, but it's enough to allow a graceful shutdown or give you the window to flip the main breaker without losing any data. For most small to medium operations, that's exactly the kind of safety net you need. What makes this unit stand out from other 3 kVA options is the flexibility in mounting. You can rack mount it in a standard 19-inch frame or flip it into a tower configuration if space is at a premium. I tried both setups. In a rack, the unit sat neatly in a middle slot, leaving enough clearance for the front panel LCD and the battery maintenance access door. As a tower, it stood upright on a shelving unit, and the cable management was simple enough that you could route power cords and network fiber without a tangled mess. That flexibility means you don't have to redesign your layout just to accommodate a UPS, which can be a hidden cost when you're working with limited square footage. Now for the practical strengths. First is the remote power off (RPO) port. This feature is often overlooked, but in a real-world scenario it can be a lifesaver. Imagine you have a remote data center that you need to shut down quickly for maintenance. With the RPO port, you can trigger a clean power off from a central console, no need to crawl up to the unit and press a button. Eaton's software client, which comes bundled with the 9PX, supports 2-node, 2N redundancy, so if you're already using a pair of UPS units, the software can orchestrate failover without manual intervention. That level of automation translates directly into less downtime and fewer human errors. Another point worth noting is the battery lifecycle cost. The 9PX series uses industrial-grade lead-acid batteries that are designed to last 30 days of deep discharge testing, so you can expect a pretty reliable performance over the usual 3-year warranty period. Batteries are the biggest recurring expense for any UPS, and by choosing a model that uses a standard, replaceable pack, you avoid being locked into proprietary cells that cost double the market price. When it's time to swap them out, the service door opens without tools, and the battery modules slide out like a drawer, no need for a crane or a specialized technician. On the flip side, there are a few weaknesses that buyers should consider. The biggest trade-off is the upfront price. The 9PX3000GRT isn't a budget unit. It sits in the mid to high range for a 3 kVA UPS because of its online architecture and advanced management features. If you're only protecting a single workstation or a low-end home lab, you might find a line interactive UPS with a similar VA rating cheaper and perfectly adequate. Also, because it's an online unit, the efficiency while running on mains power hovers around 92%. That means you'll see a small increase in your electricity bill compared with a standby model. In a large deployment, that can add up, so energy-conscious users need to weigh the constant power draw against the level of protection they truly need. Another practical concern is the learning curve around the Eaton Intelligent Power Manager (IPM) software. The interface is packed with options, runtime estimates, load segmentation, event logging, and firmware updates. If you're comfortable tweaking settings, you'll get the most out of the UPS. However, for someone who prefers a plug-and-play experience, the initial configuration can feel a bit overwhelming. The good news is that the software includes preset profiles for common setups, and the on-screen wizard walks you through the basic steps. Still, plan for an extra half hour of setup time if you're not already familiar with Eaton's ecosystem. Who should buy this UPS? If you run a small to medium business, a remote office, or a serious home studio where data integrity matters, the 9PX3000GRT is a strong candidate. It covers up to